Hello and welcome back to a special Monday edition of The Panel. It's your official SuperCoach NBL show. I'm Kelsey Brown. We are here to talk all things SuperCoach today, a bit of a general one as it is a crazy time of the year. The rounds are coming and going. We don't know when they start and finish, but we're going to tell you when they do. We're going to talk about the best performing players, coaches of the year and the trades that JC and I have won and lost on this season. It is only the two of us. You aren't blind. There is only two of us here today, but JC, welcoming you in. You're the basketball wizard. We love having you here. Talk to us about how you're feeling. Christmas time, ham on the table.
Well, Kels, look, I'm going to need a Christmas miracle basically just to salvage my SuperCoach season. Look, I would love more than anything for Santa to bring you a centre. I think for your SuperCoach team at the moment, Kelsey is in struggle town with her centres.
I am.
And for me, a massive Sam Froling just outburst. Like just to go absolutely, you want to talk ham? I want him to go ham on the Sydney Kings on Christmas Day to really help my team because we're halfway through round 13,
yes.
right? So Christmas this week. I am looking down the barrel of one of my worst weeks yet.
Oh no.
It sucks. It's horrifying. I'm like, come on, man. This is the opposite of the holiday spirit. Let's get this turned around.
So you're officially the Grinch when it comes to SuperCoach
my
at this
team,
point.
My team is the Grinch.
Right.
My team is like looked under my tree and went, I'm taking all that. Let's go.
We do have 4 games left of this round. Points and scores are correct at the time that we're recording this. So whenever you're listening to this, it will be maybe a little bit different, price changes and stuff like that. But for us here right now, JC, round 13 to 16, it is a blur regardless. But round 13 ends December 25th. So Christmas, we've got 4 more games, like I said. Round 14 is December 26th to the 31st. So a really short one for round 14. Round 15, January 2nd to 8th. And round 16 is January 9th to 15th. So the rounds you need to be on top of, and we've always spoken about scheduling in this episode and in this podcast. Talk to us about the scheduling and what you need to get right with this Christmas period.
You need to carve out 15, 20 minutes, like basically every day, just to stay on top of your team. Just ignore your family, ignore your pets. Just get the presents over there. You can play with them later. It's fine. I think the key thing for me always during this period is the app. And just like staying on top of it and going, oh, cool, I'm on top of my injury news. Because you have a very, very short window from that Christmas Day period where we have the flip around to the next round for Boxing Day. It starts that night. So you really need to be on it, make your trades, get that knocked over. And then the same thing happens, I guess, around the end of New Year's Eve. Thankfully, nothing on New Year's Day. So we can all just sort of cruise past that extremely dusty New Year's Day for the second, for that next round, round 15. But that key one really is from Boxing Day to New Year's Eve. You've got to be on top of it just before Boxing Day. And then sort of outside of that, you give yourself like a day or two just to make sure you're on top of it all the time.
You need to carve out some time. But I want to ask you, have you used your boosts? Because we've obviously got boosts available. You can head to supercoach.com.au, as JC mentioned, for everything that you need, undo trades, boosts if you need to. I have utilized 2 of mine. I've got 2 left. Are you going to be using them over the Christmas period?
Could I have one of those for Christmas, Kels? That'd be really nice. I'm out. So.
Oh, you're out?
Yeah. I'm way out. Like I used mine, I think my last boost probably 2 weeks ago. And this was all sort of as part of my upgrade to get like full primo on the court. Unfortunately, it has also left my bench bereft, which we will get to when we talk about some of these trades that we've gotten sort of right and wrong. But yeah, the boosts, if you've still got some left, well played, because it means you can actually upgrade a little bit easier as long as you've got cash generation still on the bench. You keep building your team. You should have it basically finalised around now, I think. But I still need to like work on a couple of my bench spots.
Maybe that's where I went wrong. I should have utilised them earlier. Let's get to the hot and not. So this is the best performance across the season. Not round to round. We've gone across the season so far. Hot. Top of the list, Xavier Cooks, no surprises, 634 for him. Parker Jackson Cartwright, 604 for him across the season so far. Jack White, 589. Kendrick Davis, superstar. I've never had enough money to get him into my team, 554. And Matt Hurt, 544. He's been unbelievable. Anyone from that list that you have loved?
So I've loved all of them. They've all obviously been fantastic. And I think at different points, they've all been on my team.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they're not all on my team right now. So we've managed to sort of somehow thread this needle of having good players come through King Deli's Tins, which is my team's name. Basically, thread the needle of having them for little parts of the season and then jettisoning them at the exact wrong time. So, but Cooks and PJC, like, Cooks is 30 points. So these are the total points, right? So we're talking total points across the season so far. I think one of the biggest things we could have learned probably from this SuperCoach season is that there's a pretty good case to be made that if you're going to get your premiums into your team, sometimes you don't have to like move off from them quickly. You can actually just set and forget sometimes. Cooks is at 634, PJC's at 604. So Cook's scoring 30 more points so far this season. There's been a couple more Sydney doubles here and there, but he's scored 30 more points than the next person. That's like an entire other player for an entire week. So you could look at this and go, if I've had those people in there and I've built up my team and I've still got them, you should be rolled gold. But here on out, we've got a couple of like weird scheduling quirks and everything like that. But they are obviously the best performers of the season. If you look at the averages as well, like that's sort of more when we look at this idea of like, oh, should we have just kept the best players? Of course we should have just kept the best players.
You can look at it now.
But so those totals are like, that's more indicative of like, so Cooks is averaging 37. So that week where he might not have a double, if he's getting you 37, you're happy with that. Like sometimes you're going to have someone on a double, they might not get to 37, you feel like an idiot. So like Cook's at 37, PJC at a 37 average, Jack White 32, Kendrick Davis is averaging a ridiculous 42.6.
And we spoke about him as well, you and I off air, about Kendrick Davis. I think he had 7 points to halftime and then managed to just pull it back. I don't think you can ever count Kendrick Davis out of a game, even with SuperCoach points. 7 points up until the half, and then
goes bang,
and then goes berserk. So
meanwhile, like Bryce, I think did the exact opposite, where he scored all these points in the first quarter.
Yes,
still managed to seemingly at the moment. So I think his break even for this round was 16. I think without the actual sort of other calculations, he just got to that. So he might have actually vaguely rewarded people who kept him, but not actually rewarded them. At least he didn't punish them. So he didn't go full-blown Grinch, which is good.
Let's touch on the knots because, I mean, I don't think there's any surprises here. Dangadell, 27 across the season. He's been injured. He had that leg injury. He's broken that hand. Ben Eyre, 50. He's not seeing much court time for South East Melbourne. Mitch McCarron, Mojave King. I think everyone came into the season thinking that Jarrell was going to play a bigger role. Trez comes across. Isaac's still finding his space. What is happening with Jarrell Martin?
Well, Jarrell, it was a weird one, right? Because it was very much like, oh, do we go early on Trez? Because, I don't know, you got Jarrell there, you've got Iceman. Like, what are we going to do? And it turns out he's sort of like taken a lot longer to get back into the groove of things than we probably expected. And once he has, it still hasn't been like the pop-off. So I think that's still much more of a slow burn. So I think Ben Eyre is like one of the interesting ones for me. Like Foxy has obviously gone absolutely smashed it for South East Melbourne. And like that's good, but if you've nailed the Foxwell call early on as a cash cow, like Ben Eyre, you're kind of like, oh, that's a tough one if you had him early on, because you've got that sort of backcourt when you've got Glover, when you've got Ben Eyre, when you've got Foxy, like trying to like, again, thread the needle of like which one is going to go off this week. Like Glover was disappointing early on, but then has turned it around.
Which is when I had him.
And then Foxy's obviously gone off as well, but now Derek Walton Jr. is back and crushing, so this is like the awesome vagaries of SuperCoach, Kels.
That's what I've learnt this year as the rookie. Let's get to the trades we won and lost so far this season. And I mean, I have a lot more losses as the rookie, and I think I'm allowed to. However, I did have some wins. I got Casey Prather relatively early. I think he had a double with 14 or back-to-back 14s. But I was still on him. I was sticking with the Casey Prather train. 35 points last game. Absolutely killed it. That post-game interview with him and Ariana, thumbs up to that. And I have kept Xavier Cooks all year.
Awesome.
He has been in from the start. The only one that I am disappointed that I got off, and I think it was a scheduling thing, was Matt Hurt.
Yep.
But you know, keeping Xavier Cooks was a win for me. So Casey Prather, Xavier Cooks have been wins for me. What about you?
The wins are very, very light on the ground, I'll tell you that way. No, seriously, like starting Kendrick Davis, I was really happy with that. I got in Trez really early as well. So I've been on board the sort of Adelaide train. The problem was I got off Kendrick Davis probably a hint too early. I think he was my stepping stone to PJC once they sort of came back and started playing their doubles. And I've almost been playing catch up since then because PJC's been fine. He's obviously the second highest scorer of the year, but trying to get Kendrick Davis back in has been pretty tough. Like moving to Bryce when I did, that was a win. I think essentially the two things that really tripped me up were not starting Cooks. So I'm the opposite of you there, Kels,
Yep.
which is bad. And obviously I think, so I was also tossing around between basically Hurt at the start of the year. I did stick with Jack White, and this has been a long-running theme on this show. Bon Jovi. I'm just like, what a dead or alive. I want Jack White on my team.
Mr. Consistency.
And he's been fantastic.
Yeah.
A couple of the games that he missed, that sort of sucked. But I got him in early. He has basically stayed in my team the entire season, so I nailed that. Outside of that, it's a lot more misses, really, than anything else. And it starts with the Perth duo, Doolittle and Pinder. Like, I think I got on early on Pinder, and it didn't matter. Like, he then just sort of had like one or two really half-decent games and then fell off a cliff. And Doolittle was the exact same. And then I think we both got done by the Doolittle donut.
We did get done by the Doolittle donut. That one hurt me. That was a big one in my losses. And I had been tossing and toing and froing with Doolittle for a couple of weeks. What do I do? And he'd come out and he'd pop off, and it was awesome. And then I got on him for that donut, and I don't think I can ever put Pinder and Doolittle in my team again. Shout out to you guys. You guys are great, just not in my SuperCoach team. And for me, the hard one has been, I have ridden the PJC train the whole time when they've started the doubles, but I have never been able to afford Bryce and KD. And I think for me, it's been, how do I get them in? They're just absolutely crushing it, but I just don't have enough money. And that's been a really big learning curve for me, is how do you get enough money? How do you get enough money in your bank? We heard Mick Randall say last week he had about 100,000 just sort of sitting there and he could play with. For me, I've never had the luxury of that. I think I've got about $1 at the minute. So the losses for me have been just never having enough money and the Doolittle injury.
Right, so I guess all that obviously comes down to is cash generation.
Yes.
From those cash cows on your bench or even your starters, right? So when you are playing this sort of schedule game, hoping that your starters have built up enough sort of a base level so they're making you money as well, so that when the schedule turns against them, you can move them onto somebody else at a half decent value or even onto another cash cow. And I think my biggest two probably regrets this year were moving off Angus Glover way too early. And sort of not trusting my, I do call him Cousin Angus. There's the ginger brethren kind of vibe. And my son is like, but Dad, he's not our actual cousin. I'm like, but he kind of is. He might be. Like, let's just leave it at that. And then, so I moved off Glover too early, and then he turned around and has been fantastic. And then the other one was getting off Dave O'Hickey way too early, where you had a couple of the injuries in Illawarra, his role changes, and then he just goes absolutely ballistic. And I think that's the biggest difference. So as you talk about here, Kels, like as a rookie SuperCoach player, trying to generate all that cash to sort of keep that continuous upgrade train rolling can be really, really difficult. Like even in my sort of point where I've missed on two really, really big cash cows, that's put me behind the 8 ball to make my upgrades that much more difficult. So I'm like praying that Karim Lopez has a really good second half of his week this week to sort of keep boosting his cash back up. I'm hoping that Menenga keeps playing a lot. So it gets really, really hard. So what are the other ones that you sort of hit on though this year that you sort of like coming into this as a SuperCoach rookie? What were your like biggest learnings, I guess, so far from the first half of the season?
And these might be obvious to people who have played it for a while, but I do think these are the main touch points for me that I go off every sort of round. So it is about the doubles and the scheduling. It's about looking, I think I got caught really early just looking at this week and not what's coming up. I mean, Adelaide have 6 doubles out of the next 7 rounds. Early days, I wasn't looking at that. I was just going, well, someone's got a double this week and let's get them in. And then I really struggled with my trades the following week. Yep. So I think the doubles and the scheduling for me was a big one. I think taking risks in SuperCoach can be, yes, they can come back to bite you, but they can be really rewarding. This week, I was tossing up between sort of Quatnoy and Alex Tui as someone to put in my lineup. I don't think they're big risks, but Quatnoy came out off the bench, 26 points. I actually ended up going with Alex Tui, who still performed really well. But if I had Quatnoy and just, had have stuck with that risk, he might have been a point of difference for me. So I think trying to take some risks and get a little bit of an upper hand, it might ruin you, but I think that is a good one. And I think just what I spoke about before, trying to bank some money, because it is really difficult to watch everyone getting on the Bryce train, him going off for 40 points for 4 weeks in a row and just going, I cannot afford you, which is probably how Perth is feeling at the moment.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. Like the cash generation is so crucial for that sort of first month and a half to get those cash cows right and then to keep getting it right. So you talk about Casey Prather. I think he's one of my other misses as well, but I had him early as well. So I jumped on, I'm like, okay, we're feeling great, we're feeling good. Casey Prather, we've got this awesome schedule down the back half of the season. And he hit that sort of back-to-back 14 little speed bump. I think he'd made enough money, and I'm like, I just don't know about this. There was also rumors of an injury, and I'm like, I'm going to peace out right now on the Casey Prather trade. We might come back. And then boom, he goes absolutely ham. I'm like, he's a Christmas ham right now.
He's glazed.
And it's just unbelievable. So I think, even again, I missed out last week. I went between he and Froling, and he's gone obviously off already. I'm like, come on, man, I can't take a trick with Casey Prather. So, I mean, these are the tough parts of SuperCoach, but it's also the fun part. Because I always want to galaxy brain everything. I'm like, this is like they're failing with all the other sports, but NBL, you're just like, I think, I know, ooh, this guy's going to go off, and no one else kind of realizes it. This is the point of difference, the pods. And I've maybe hit one or two this year, and it breaks my heart. So here we are.
No, I know some people are absolutely killing the pods. Let's get to the shout-out twos. And this is across the season. So these are the leaders of SuperCoach at the moment. Geckos for Sam, 5,139 points, just things that I dream of. The Wellefants for Michael, 5,089. Now, you have a good point off this one. Very similar to me, obviously different scores, but never had Bryce or Davis.
Well, it doesn't have Bryson Davis at the moment. It has this incredible guard lineup. So, and this is like looking at it from a team building perspective, where you look at someone like, so this is the second ranked coach all season, 50 points behind the leader, but the backcourt is PJC, Delhi, Trey Cal, and Kendra Cook. And you're like, you've got four incredible guards. And so that, if you look at the rest of their bench as well, it's like Menenga Almansa and Isaac Humphries. And so this is an incredibly well-constructed team. It's super deep. And when you've got your bench doing that much scoring, like, it just makes it so much easier to keep like boosting up and obviously getting to be number two. And number one, like Geckos for Sam, like with Jack White, Hurt, Tyrell Harrison, PJC, Kendra Cook, but also Davis. And the key one there is like they've still got Glover. They've still got Henschel. Like they've built up so much cash in the bank to be this deep and that good that they could probably keep on winning. So.
Yeah, unbelievable to those guys. We've got Josh Gritty for Timothy coming in third. King Legends for Justin, 5,057. And Tiger Trauma for Glenn, which I love that name. So shout out to those guys. You guys are leading at the moment. An incredible job from you. I bet you're spending a lot of time on the SuperCoach app. NBL app over the break as well is going to be super key. Live score updates. But as I said, you can head to supercoach.com.au for anything that you need to do. Let's get to the moves that we are going to make.
I just
JC.
want to point out, I did get yelled at this week for looking at the NBL app too much. We're at a couple of Christmas family do's and was sitting there on my phone going, come on,
just tell your son
Bryce,
you're texting Santa.
do more. I'm like, hey, you can't yell at me. Can I put the basketball? And he's like, no, we're doing a family Christmas thing. I'm like, well, I'm going to be looking at my phone. I'm sorry.
Are you making any moves this week? Because we did touch it at the top. I have a huge centre problem. I said last week I was part of the 28% that still had Rocco. So I've got Rocco on my bench, which is tough. And then I have just been stuck with Sam Menenga for a period of time. I just haven't had enough trades. And I mean, people are probably sitting at home being like, what? But that's where I'm at. So give me something to do with my centres.
Well, Menenga has been fine as like a backup. And I feel like each time there's sort of any questions about the breakers and like what they're doing, he's just kind of solid.
He is.
And he's been solid. Rocco is okay if anything happens to Tyrell, like he's actually probably going to be worth holding on to. But yeah, I think the question that you'll be facing now is like, how can I combine those two in like a trade to get to like one of the mid-pricer better centres, or switch someone like Trez into the centre position and maybe switch in a forward or something like that. It does get very hard. Like I've got Tyrell Harrison, and now I just don't want to sort of move off him.
Yep.
And I'm sort of going to be moving around the edges, building up that bench. But I think it's not a horrible position, but yeah, you probably need that one big name
guy.
centre.
Yeah, I do.
It's hard to get there. And like that's why I think I was sort of doing these jump off points throughout the season where I had Isaac Humphries for the 2 weeks that Trez wasn't there. That worked out pretty well. I got off Rocco. Actually, that was a pretty decent trade. I got off Rocco at the exact time that he sort of then fell off a cliff again. But yeah, so it gets pretty hard. But like someone like Sam Froling, if he just sort of plateaus this week, he's a really, really, really solid option. I don't know, you got a couple of questions there.
I do. What about your moves? What do you need to fix on your lineup?
Well, my moves are going to be based mostly around, you talked about the schedule, Kels. The schedule! And I'll tell you what, we've got an incredible run this back half of the season, unless I believe you were Perth, Melbourne United, like they're the only ones with 2 doubles left, right? I think United have 2 singles, so do Perth, and then 2 doubles after that, and that's kind of it. So I think we've sort of moved past that for the minute. Though if you do have Jack White, what have we talked about already? If you've got one of the top 5 scorers, you can maybe just keep them.
Yep.
And if they've got a couple of doubles still down the road, maybe. But obviously Brisbane with 5 straight doubles, Illawarra with 4 straight doubles as well. The big question will be, I think for a lot of people, is if you can't get Kendrick Davis, do you try to get Trey Cal? Dude is playing at an MVP level right now. He's absolutely crushing.
Love that call.
Doing incredibly well. So I feel like Cal is probably the next best answer to that sort of guard spot. He and Condre Cook. And Cook has been really, really, really good. Decently priced as that sort of third guard as well. And I think with Bryce probably plateauing in price, you then have your choices of these sort of guys. Or if you can sort of upgrade the rest of your bench, move Bryce to the bench and just sort of hope that he has like massive, massive games from here on out. But with Brisbane, Illawarra and Adelaide sort of like really crushing all these doubles, as you mentioned, was it Adelaide 5 doubles in the next 6? Then New Zealand sort of a single next week, then 4 more doubles. Like they're the 4 teams, essentially my entire team will comprise that of. And then sort of build around the edges with a couple of these sort of points of difference. Like I'm hoping that Mason Peatling has a really
He's
good
on my
game.
team, guys.
Exactly. So it's like those are the guys that if you can get another hefty price rise out of, maybe you can move him to somebody else, upgrade another position. Because he's not putting up huge, huge numbers, but he's doing well enough consistently that you can at least sort of go, oh, that's bankable. Cool. Another little bit of a price rise. Another price rise. Then hopefully he gets to a point where you can move off him if you need to. So Cairns are another sneaky one. And one of my sort of big questions will be trying to get from Meninga as my backup centre to the Burger, go Wardenberg. Or just like somebody else from Cairns. Like just another point of difference because I don't feel like anybody is really coveting the Cairns players in SuperCoach at the moment. So he's like a sneaky target. Taron Armstrong as well. But for the moment, it's going to be trying to get Cal into my team. It's going to be trying to finagle these forward spots at the moment. And, hope that Trez, again, talk about what I want for Christmas. I want Trez to go absolutely ham on Christmas Eve against Brisbane. And Tyrell to take it to him as well. And then they go back and forth and it'll be great fun.
I think the interesting thing that you said was that Trez is unbelievable at home. So even though he came to Melbourne, he maybe didn't have his greatest score, he had 22 SuperCoach points. He goes back home for Christmas Eve and he could just clock a 40, 50. I don't know.
Well, the thing is, he's done it before, right? That's what Trez keeps on doing. Like every time he plays at home in Adelaide, he goes off. Like it's been a season-wide trend. I think he's gone. The first game that he played at home against Sem was a 28. Outside of that, he's ripped off 38, 43, 71, 45, and 46. So it's just fingers crossed that Trez just continues to do that in Adelaide. And if you can bank on at least one of those massive, massive home games from him, that's again rolled gold. But I think a lot of this will be literally the strategy the rest of the season is to have a full team of doubles each and every week. Use your 2 trades each week to maybe either get an upgrade, but make sure you've always got doubles.
Yeah, well, you've heard it here first, guys. JC is finagling the forwards. That's what he's going to be doing. We're going to be spending some Christmas time with our families. We'll be back in a fortnight. JC, as always, thank you so much for joining us. Supercoach.com.au, the NBL app will be your best friends over this Christmas period. We can't wait to see you back in a fortnight, and good luck with all of your SuperCoach endeavours.